Hey other dudes. How are you dealing with the existential dread of not being able to afford things like our fathers and grandfathers were able to? And the uncertainty of the future because of it? My dad can't afford, so I just don't think about it. I don't bother much with that. I'm slowly chipping away at my dreams. The bigger problem is that focusing on my financial security means I am sacrificing my dating life. I'm currently harshly reminded of the fact that dedicating my weekends to work means I don't have time, energy, or money to date anyone. Most of the time I've accepted that I'll remain single, but I'm still human and I can get lonely as well. Right now I'm feeling lonely. I scaled down my expectations and focus on quality of life. I'm dealing with it badly. I already lost everything once, scrambled my way out of homelessness, found my way into a dead-end job I can barely do with my lack of work experience and education. I've racked up debt trying to live alone while everything gets more expensive, and instead of some gung-ho never again attitude, I have grown numb to the fact that I am probably just not going to be able to make even a basic survival income for much longer, and any single catastrophe would ruin my life instantly. There's no happy ending or safe place, it's just a matter of time before the house of cards collapses. I'm available for children's birthday parties, weddings and bar mitzvahs, just a laugh riot one day at a time. I live in Argentina, was bad since before I was born. Even with a good paying job I am nonetheless. Other people would give up and become pessimistic. But I have that thing inside of me that makes me angry, like, even if everything is on fire and my body is failing me, even if I am on the edge of madness, how dare you assume I'll quit on the basis that there's no hope? I do my own because it has to be done. Life is uncertainty, and still needs to be done, with or without hope, dreams, and inspiration. Because at the end of the day every punch I ever threw, even if it was for nothing, was still worth it, and I'll laugh. It was tough at first, but nowadays, I realize that I can live a very comfortable life even with my frugal spending habits. If you're a single guy with no kids, it's not too hard to get by. It's hard to create a budget that will make you rich, but it's not hard to create a budget that will keep you from being poor. I'm just living one day at a time, brother. If I start to break down things and really think of what I won't be able to afford in the future, I'll drive myself mad. I'm thankful for where I'm at now. Sure, it could be better, but it could be worse too. Best way I try to live is just a day at a time. Honestly, changing jobs frequently and recommending close friends and family do the same. Doing the same job, and even sometimes with less responsibility, can sometimes double your salary, which is crazy. Companies don't give a about your loyalty and you just don't get valued enough to stay. Alcoholism and depression mostly. Sought help for both. Even with a great job, everything seems so bleak. My grandparents didn't have credit cards. When they ran out of money, they simply didn't eat. Apparently this happened quite often, though usually only for a day at a time. They walked 2 miles to the nearest store with a child's wagon to get groceries, because they certainly didn't have a car. Their whole life plan was interrupted by World War II. My grandfather was drafted. My grandfather's brother died after losing a fight with a tractor. My grandmother's brother died because cars didn't have collapsible steering columns, so the steering column caved in his chest. After finding success later on, my grandfather bought an extravagant gift for his mother, a dishwasher. Our pictures of their lives are far more rosy than reality. Did I mention my grandfather was a STEM PhD? Then, cheap houses, expensive computers. Now, the opposite. Enjoy your killer gaming rig. I changed career. I'm doing better than them actually. Dad lost the house. Spending all the money on drugs/pills. Grandpa disappeared when my dad was born. I have 3-bedroom apartment, car in my own name, paid off, and I have a decent amount in my savings. I have formulated a plan to move to a far more remote but beautiful part of my country where I may have a chance of buying a house. There's a lot of unknowns, but as long as I can find stable work I might pull it off. My old man worked hard in his 20s, well, his whole life, and started his family early, but it wouldn't have been easy, so he is a stand-up dude really. Turns out I'm not very financially literate, and I have a lot of hard work in front of me. We all make our choices probably in the most irrational way possible. I learned survival skills and have a tent and place to go. I can go into the wilderness where I have planned and be fine. Oh, I'm not trying to live in this world like the boomers did because this is not the same world that the boomers came up in. We can't compare our lives to our parents because nothing is the same as it was when our parents were our age. You need to adjust your expectations and start living within your means and you can have a good life. Well, comparing goes all ways. Are you also feeling happy because medicine is much better now? Smile. I'd start with eliminating your imaginary baseline of a random era. That's an interesting metric but not one to tie your own life to. Never compare things and make decisions since they are always relative. Then you keep eliminating risks. Any risk, small or big, make it go away, if you can. Approaching it this way comes with inherent priority sorting. Sorting risks is easier and more accurate than say sorting your goals or needs. Example, how long can I sustain if I lost my job today? That's an important risk for everyone. Once you identify your risks, either mitigate or eliminate where possible. Over time, as you start doing better, your mitigations will last longer, risks grow smaller. And suddenly you realize it's been a while since you felt anxious. I go into meltdown mode every couple of months. It's just unbelievable. It doesn't really matter whether you have a better paid job or not. Whatever you earn is not even enough to have a normal life. And I describe normal as to simply have a safe place to call base. Let alone going out or owning anything. Just that. The only thing I can think of that's less affordable is housing. My grandfather and father couldn't afford beef for the table. Thankfully we had space to raise chickens and pigs and grow beans. My wife's dad had a burro as a primary mode of transportation in 1970. Granted, that was in Mexico. It was a deadly sin in my house to make a 2-minute long-distance call on the one phone line shared by about 5 households. Our TV that got 2 channels good and 3 if you turned the antenna just right cost my old man at least a week of work. Point being, it's never been all milk and honey for young people. I'm only 57 and at age 29 I was living in a 2-room apartment without air conditioning while working 40 hours a week night shifts in a factory. Then cutting firewood on the weekends to keep my car on the road, and to be honest to buy beer, play softball and date. I have more money than both of them combined. I'm good. I grew up in a trailer eating ramen and hot dogs while my dad worked 2 jobs and mom was going to school. Never could afford any fresh fruit or year-round sports. Dad passed away still holding massive debt. My kids have much more than I did growing up. Yeah, I'm pretty sure our dads were just as broke. When I grew up we only had 1 car that was beat up and my dad did all the work on because we couldn't afford a mechanic. The only vacations we took were to local campgrounds and we didn't go on a real vacation until I was like 10. We rarely ate out and our mom shopped often at thrift stores. We got cable TV when I was maybe 8. It's all relative and more about mindset. I'm pretty convinced that what a lot of people think is a requirement for standard of living is really more of a luxury. Also, becoming a father is a huge motivator to grow and improve your career and income. It's hard not being able to afford a child. Every time the wife and I start getting more comfortable another societal disaster or huge expense comes along. We're already paycheck to paycheck. I don't know how people do it. So we just say maybe in a couple years to each other every so often. Like you, I just keep my head down and work my 50 hours a week. That's been my cope tbh. I was in a similar situation a few years ago. I started my first sales job to get experience but I had to work evenings and weekends. Did that for 2 years and then I found my current 9-to-5 sales job that I love and can't believe they pay me what they do. Keep your head down and grind, but make sure you give yourself a plan to improve and grow on to the next thing. There's no sense wasting your life away for work. You can change the ship and direction of your life, but it takes time and persistence. You can do it. Greater than the bigger problem is that focusing on my financial security means I am sacrificing my dating life. Might want to rethink that. Studies have found that relationships are more important than money for long-term life satisfaction. https://www.health.harvard.edu/staying-healthy/the health benefits of strong relationships. This is a good answer. It's good to slow down, too. To appreciate what you have, rather than want. Added to the final sentence to show that I mean that one should appreciate what they have, rather than mean you directly. Let's hope we don't get to the point where we are happy over a can of beans and a sleeping bag though. I know this sounds so good in Spanish, good cope. It seems that many struggling people are comparing themselves only to the success stories they see on social media. Those never show the majority of us, who have to make hard choices and sacrifice important stuff to achieve something else that's more important to us. Our parents also had to work long hours and save to get to where they were, and we see the positives, but not really all the hard times they, as most people, went through. How you feel about your own achievements has something to do with the lens you look through, and who you compare yourself to, besides the actual premises. Our comparing scope might be different and wider from our parents because of our digital interfaces, and that might not be beneficial when you struggle and feel left behind. Choosing your references to positive ones and blocking the ones who make you feel bad are easy steps to better mental health and a more positive self-light. If you live in a low cost of living area, things aren't that bad. You can afford a nice house for like $110K where I'm from, which is attainable for a decent amount of people where I live. Any kind of dual income basically means you're very well off, as long as you're not spending tons of money on beer or video games or something. Hopefully Nvidia's 5090 will be big enough that I can finally move out of my parents' attic and live inside my GPU. We shipped all the middle-class jobs overseas so I can have an affordable sick computer. Awesome. I can play video in 4K in my tent. This is a huge part of the modern economy that has been designed by central bankers. They do things like slash interest rates to spur the economy, which makes debt cheap so people spend. This gives us the appearance of success because we have big TVs and expensive cars. Ever drive by a poor part of town? In the 80s it would have run down rust buckets. Today you will see very nice cars. Because they're financed on cheap debt. The cheap debt has a second effect of enriching the wealthy, who use it to buy more expensive investment assets like real estate. So while they are giving us TVs and affordable leases, they are making it impossible to get ahead on real assets that build wealth and equity, reserving that instead for the already wealthy. The markers of actual happiness, like a comfortable home in a good neighborhood near family and friends, are disappearing, and instead we're given distractions like trivial consumer goods and told you should be happy. Pimpin' you say. Sounds like you've done well for yourself, man. Hope you're proud of yourself, homie. Before PPL comment about asking mom. She was in MIA/in jail for most of my life. Jesus. The most upsetting part about this comment is how much it hits home. Well, modern problems sometimes require caveman solutions. I like it because I want to be able to afford a home and stay there longer than a year. My grandfather and father lived in poverty cause my whole country was poor back then. When my father was an adult my age things got slightly better. But that had fallen a bit now. But still no way can I afford what he could buy when he was my age. It's a bit of a hard topic to have because most luxuries are more obtainable, but most necessities are skyrocketing in price. I have tech and quality of living that my dad could never have afforded. I also work 4 times the hours to afford a considerably worse apartment. Greater than I'm pretty convinced that what a lot of people think is a requirement for standard of living is really more of a luxury. This is worth repeating. I've never wanted to be a father, but I can't imagine how anyone can do it now. What's your occupation? Stuff it down with some brown. I think my job is pretty amazing and pays very well. Houses are just absurdly expensive that I need to save everything I can to afford one in my lifetime. My partner and I met when we were already middle-aged, so we were very aware that our time together won't be endless. So we both scaled down work a bit. We buy clothes on sale and in charity shops, go camping instead of on big holidays. I drive a really old car. But our quality of life is great.